So the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy, the Definitive Edition, was released on Thursday, and unfortunately, it's not very good. Given that there were no review codes given out until the day of launch, I knew something was up. The trailer that Rockstar showed off a few weeks ago looked good, but it does illustrate some concerns that I had with the game, and unfortunately, those concerns turned out to be real. I did take the last couple of days to sit down and play the game for myself before I decided to give you my thoughts. I tried out San Andreas on Xbox Game Pass and played for about 5 hours. I also tried the original GTA 3 Definitive Edition on the PlayStation 5 for about 3 hours. Now, my honest opinion of this Definitive Edition is mixed. On one hand, there are truly some parts of the game that look good, and the graphic enhancements really do make a difference, especially on the Xbox Series X. San Andreas, for the most part, runs pretty well, it looks good, and it loads super fast. The gameplay, the control scheme, the updated feel of the game, the classic GTA formula is all there. But first, let's talk about GTA 3, because this is where it all started, right? And let's go ahead and compare it to an original Xbox version. This is the OG Xbox version on the left-hand side. Now you can automatically see that something is off with this remake. The rain effect is particularly garish, and the mood that's set with the original game with its deep green and blue tint and the debris blowing in the wind is quite legendary. What couldn't be done with technology back in the day was made up with style and elegance. The intro to GTA 3 for me is one of those great setups in video game history that it just stays with you. And on the Definitive Edition, unfortunately, it's been completely ruined. Now, we've already talked about the rain, and unfortunately, it's present in all three games, and it's completely broken in its implementation, which we'll come back to. But the smaller touches, the color palette is all wrong. The debris on the ground is nowhere to be found. Worse still is that you immediately learn that there's something wrong with the frame rate. While it maxes out at 60 FPS while you play the game, it's kind of all over the place, and I would expect Digital Foundry to really test out the game over the coming days. But if you ask me, it dips as low into the 40s in some parts, and this really shouldn't be occurring on PS5 hardware. Now, the main concern here, of course, is that the game has been engine swapped to use Unreal Engine 4, which is notorious for these types of frame rate issues when the game has not been optimized very well. And I'm not really sure what's going on in 2021 with fog, but we saw the removal of fog in the Ocarina of Time game on the Nintendo Switch Online, and here once again, the fog has been completely removed, and I'm not really sure why that is. Now, let's move on to GTA 3 San Andreas. I played about 5 hours as mentioned, and for the most part, the game feels fine, but there are some noticeable problems. The frame pacing is really terrible, and you can really feel it in this game for some reason or another. I'm not sure, but it just feels a lot worse in San Andreas. There are moments in the game where everything is silky smooth, and then all of a sudden it just makes you feel like you're crawling in quicksand. It's a really, really weird feeling. Now, apart from this, there are issues with character models. Many of the bystanders and the pedestrians have really simplistic and odd character models, and there's also really poor character animations as well. And once again, that damn rain. I was running on the beach in San Andreas, and the same rain effect on GTA 3 is present here. It's a total copy-paste, and what's even worse is that it's completely broken. I ran under the boardwalk, and the rain is still present underneath the boardwalk, and while looking at the horizon on the water, it's been completely clipped out. So it appears as though it's some type of Z buffer issue, or maybe the order of where the rain was applied is incorrect as compared to the rest of the scenery in the game. But there's just something really, really broken about the rain, and it always seems to be one sitting. There's no density, there's no velocity. In the original GTA 3, you can see that the rain kind of swirls around in the wind, but in this one, it just seems to just fall vertically, and the effect just doesn't look very good at all. Now, let's move on from the rain, because I know I've been talking about it for a little bit, but there's also other things in the game that I came across very quickly, and that is the spelling mistakes. And this is something that I noticed in like the second or third mission in the game, and I'm not really sure, again, why this has happened. I guess from a developer standpoint, maybe there's some scripts that ran that just didn't apply textures correctly. But again, it's just another thing that really makes this definitive edition seem very, very amateurish. Now, we talked about fog being missing in GTA 3, but if we take a look at this screenshot, you can clearly see when you're flying in an aeroplane, the entire map of San Andreas is visible. And this just looks really, really amateurish once again. Very, very poor. Now, these are my experiences and what I've seen. And none of these things really are game-breaking issues. I haven't had any issues with crashing or texture issues that other people have had. But one version of the game that I haven't tried is the Nintendo Switch version, because quite frankly, it's not worth the $60, and I've heard reports of the same bugs, but compounded with extremely poor frame rates, as we would expect. This is really no surprise, and my big concern here with the Nintendo Switch version is that it will never be optimized and fixed to run better. But things get even worse from here over on the PC. Rockstar have completely removed the game from their own website, and it's been gone for about 24 hours now, and it's left everyone unable to play the game, and even worse, unable to get a refund. Now remember, Rockstar chose to remove all previous versions of GTA 3 from every digital storefront, seemingly to make room for this release. And as of the making of this episode, it is still not possible to play GTA 3 Definitive Edition on the PC. This feels like a case where the developer really needed more time to finish the game, because it's clearly riddled with bugs and issues that would have easily had been caught in QA. But it does even go beyond that, because the entire Definitive Edition leaves a bad taste in my mouth. For this version to exist, we have to remember that Take-Two would remove and threaten all modders, sue individuals who were reverse engineering GTA 3 and Vice City, remove all traces of the original games from all digital storefronts, and shovel out an unfinished, buggy version, all while removing the PC version until further notice and offering a horrible Nintendo Switch version. The homebrew versions on the Switch and the PlayStation Vita run absolute rings around these versions of the games, and there was zero information given to the public except for a very well curated trailer just a couple of weeks ago. There were no review codes given and no chance for the public to take a look at the game before committing to purchase it. Now, I talked to some modders who worked on the earlier games, and the general consensus is they are not interested in touching this version, with continued DMCA takedowns and threats of hostility towards the community. I can't say that I really blame them. Now, I am hopeful that we will see some patches to address these issues, but I'm not convinced that some of these things, especially performance-related things, will ever be addressed. But they are just my thoughts. What do you think about Grand Theft Auto, the Definitive Edition, in the comments below? I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say on all this. There's a lot here that's been going on over the last few days, and for some reason or another, I don't believe this is the last we'll hear about. I think there's going to be more of this story as things continue to progress over the next few days. But we are going to leave it here for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, don't forget to put a like on it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.